Dark clouds hang over London. The monarchy has fallen. A king has been executed by his own people. The throne is empty, and England trembles under uncertainty. But from the ashes, a prince waits in exile, a man of charm, wit, and survival. His name will echo across history as the Merry Monarch. This is the story of Charles II. Charles II's life was one of extremes: royal palaces and foreign exiles, civil wars and secret lovers, betrayal and loyalty. He was the son of a beheaded king, a fugitive hunted across England, and later a restored monarch who brought laughter and life back to a broken kingdom. His reign marked the return of theater, science, fashion, and politics. But it was also shadowed by fire, plague, and secret deals. To understand Charles II is to step into one of the most turbulent chapters in English history. Charles was born on May 29, 1630, in St. George James's Palace, London. He was the eldest surviving son of King Charles I and Queen Henrietta Maria of France. From birth, he was surrounded by both privilege and tension. His father's reign was marked by bitter conflict with Parliament. His mother, a Catholic queen in a Protestant country, stirred suspicion and unrest. As a boy, Charles grew up in a court divided by politics and religion. He was tall, dark-haired, and striking, even in childhood. People would later say he had an effortless charm that drew everyone toward him. But his early years were anything but easy. The storm of the English Civil War soon engulfed his family. In 1642, war broke out between King Charles I and Parliament. Young Charles, only 12 years old, saw his father's armies fight bitterly against the parliamentarians, also known as the Roundheads, led by Oliver Cromwell. At first, the royalist cause seemed strong. Charles was given command titles in name, even though he was still a teenager. But defeat after defeat weakened the king's position. By 1646, the royalist armies collapsed. Charles I surrendered to the Scots, and the royal family's fate grew darker. In 1648, as Parliament prepared for trial, Charles II, still a teenager, fled to France. It was the beginning of years of exile. He watched helplessly from abroad as his father was put on trial. The unimaginable happened on January 30th, 1649. King Charles I was executed outside Whitehall. The axe fell, and with it, the monarchy itself. For the 19-year-old Charles, it was more than losing a father. It was losing his kingdom, his birthright, and the divine crown he believed God had given him. England declared itself a commonwealth, ruled by Parliament and Oliver Cromwell. The monarchy was abolished, but royalists still had hope. In 1649, Charles was declared King of Scotland and Ireland, though he had no power in England. He traveled to Scotland in 1650 to rally support. There, he was crowned King of Scots at Scone, under strict conditions imposed by the Scots. It was a crown, but not freedom. In 1651, Charles marched south with a Scottish army, hoping to reclaim England. The gamble ended at the Battle of Worcester, where Cromwell's forces crushed him. Charles barely escaped with his life. For 6 desperate weeks, he became a fugitive in his own kingdom. He disguised himself as a commoner, hid in cottages, and famously concealed himself in an oak tree at Boscobel House, while soldiers searched below. This legendary escape cemented his image as a cunning survivor. Eventually, he slipped away to France, then to the Netherlands. The exiled king wandered courts of Europe, often poor, relying on the charity of foreign allies and loyal royalists. Charles's exile shaped him. He learned to adapt, to flatter, to survive. He became known for his wit, his humor, and his love of pleasure. Yet behind the laughter was a man determined to one day reclaim his throne. The boy who had lost his father to the executioner's blade would grow into a man who promised revenge and restoration. It is 1660. England has lived for 11 years without a king. Oliver Cromwell's Commonwealth promised godly rule and strict discipline, but instead it brought exhaustion, censorship, and divisions. After Cromwell's death in 1658, the Republic collapsed into chaos. People were weary of Puritan severity. No theaters, no dancing, no celebration. The nation longed for stability, for joy, for a crown. And waiting across the sea, Charles saw his chance. From exile in the Netherlands, Charles issued the Declaration of Breda, in April 1660. It was a brilliant piece of politics. He promised forgiveness to former enemies, respect for Parliament, and religious tolerance. In return, he asked only to be restored as king. The gamble worked. Parliament voted to invite Charles back. Bells rang across England. Crowds filled the streets in jubilation. On May 29, 1660, Charles's 30th birthday, he entered London in triumph. The people cheered wildly. After 2 decades of war, execution, and uncertainty, the monarchy was reborn. Charles II became the King of England, Scotland, and Ireland. The years of exile had ended. This was the restoration. Charles wasted no time transforming the kingdom. He reopened the theaters Cromwell had shut down. London filled with music, laughter, and performance. Charles himself loved the theater, especially the actresses. Unlike the Puritan age, when women were forbidden from the stage, Charles allowed women to perform. Stars like Nell Gwynn, who began as an orange seller, became famous actresses and one of Charles's many mistresses. Charles's court was scandalous, extravagant, and full of charm. He surrounded himself with witty courtiers, poets, and scientists. He adored fashion, gambling, and late-night banquets. To his people, he was the Merry Monarch, a king who loved life and brought back joy to a nation weary of grim Puritan rule. But merriment came with a price. Charles's reign was plagued by disasters that tested his throne. In 1665, London was struck by the Great Plague. The city fell silent as death carts rolled through the streets. Nearly 100,000 people perished. Charles fled with his court, but fear lingered. Barely had the kingdom recovered when disaster struck again. In September 1666, the Great Fire of London roared through the city. It burned for 4 days, destroying more than 13,000 houses and leaving 80,000 people homeless. Charles and his brother, James, Duke of York, personally joined firefighting efforts, inspiring admiration. But the scars of plague and fire marked his reign. Religion, too, haunted Charles's rule. Though raised Anglican, Charles had Catholic sympathies, inherited from his French mother. Many suspected he secretly leaned toward Rome. Parliament, fiercely Protestant, pushed back. Anti-Catholic paranoia boiled beneath the surface. When Charles married Catherine of Braganza, a Portuguese Catholic princess, suspicions grew. Catherine never bore him children, fueling fears about succession. Who would inherit the throne? His brother James, a Catholic, was next in line, setting the stage for future conflict. Meanwhile, England battled on the seas. Charles fought 3 wars against the Dutch Republic. Though victories and defeats balanced, England eventually gained New Amsterdam, renamed New York in honor of James. But the wars drained money, and Parliament demanded tighter control. Charles balanced politics with pleasure. His court was notorious for mistresses, lavish spending, and endless intrigue. From Barbara Villiers to Nell Gwynn, Charles fathered at least 12 illegitimate children, but no heir with his queen. Despite scandal, people forgave him. His wit, humor, and humanity made him beloved. Unlike his stern father, Charles had learned the art of survival through charm. Yet behind the laughter, shadows remained. The Merry King was constantly short of money. To secure funds, he struck secret deals, including the infamous Treaty of Dover with France in 1670. In exchange for subsidies from Louis XIV, Charles promised to support Catholic interests. It was a dangerous bargain, hidden from his people. The Restoration had brought life back to England, but beneath the parties and pageantry, a storm was gathering. The Restoration had brought back laughter and life, but Charles II's later reign was a battlefield of politics, religion, and survival. By the 1670s, England was restless. The extravagant court, the costly wars, and suspicion of Catholic sympathies created tension. Whispers grew louder. Was the king secretly Catholic? Did he intend to bring England back under Rome? The fear of Catholic conspiracy exploded in 1678 with the so-called Popish plot. A liar named Titus Oates claimed that Jesuits planned to assassinate Charles and replace him with his Catholic brother James. Though entirely fabricated, the nation panicked. Hysteria swept through London. Judges and parliamentarians believed the lies. Innocent Catholics were arrested, tortured, and executed. Charles himself, skeptical of oaths, played a dangerous game. Public anger was fierce, but Charles carefully maneuvered to protect his brother while avoiding direct confrontation with Parliament. He laughed at the absurdity of the charges, but he knew the danger was real. England could erupt in civil war again. The Popish plot fed into the Exclusion crisis, 1679 to 1681. Many in Parliament wanted to bar James, Duke of York, from the throne because he was openly Catholic. They proposed the Exclusion Bill, a law that would prevent him from inheriting. Charles refused. He believed in the divine right of kings and the hereditary line. To accept the bill would weaken the crown forever. Instead, Charles dissolved Parliament again and again, ruling with clever tactics and secret funds from France. The crisis split England into two factions: the Whigs, who supported exclusion; the Tories, who defended royal succession. This division would shape English politics for centuries. Charles, ever the survivor, outmaneuvered them all. By 1681, he was ruling with absolute authority, his enemies crushed. Even amid turmoil, Charles's court remained dazzling. He patronized the Royal Society, supporting scientists like Robert Hooke and Isaac Newton. Under Charles, discoveries in astronomy, physics, and medicine flourished. The age of science had found a royal ally. Yet gossip about his mistresses overshadowed his scholarly interests. He fathered no legitimate children with Queen Catherine, but at least a dozen illegitimate heirs with women like Barbara Villiers, Nell Gwynn, and Louise de Querouaille. He made his illegitimate son, James Scott, Duke of Monmouth, a favorite, causing whispers that he might bypass his Catholic brother for succession. Charles's charm never faded. Foreign ambassadors noted how he could diffuse anger with a joke or win loyalty with a smile. Unlike his father, Charles understood compromise, deception, and survival. But time was catching up with the Merry Monarch. By the 1680s, his health began to fail. He suffered from fits of illness, exhaustion, and old battle wounds. Still, he continued his routines of late nights, witty banter, and court intrigues. On February 2nd, 1685, Charles collapsed from a sudden stroke at Whitehall Palace. For 4 days he lingered, drifting in and out of consciousness. Courtiers wept, mistresses prayed, and physicians tried desperate remedies. On his deathbed, Charles performed his final act of secrecy. He converted to Catholicism. A priest was smuggled into the chamber, and Charles II, the Protestant king suspected of Catholic sympathies all his life, died a Catholic. He was 54 years old. His brother James II succeeded him. Charles II's reign left a paradoxical legacy. He restored the monarchy and filled England with music, theater, and laughter. He encouraged science and rebuilding after tragedy, but he also left deep divisions between Catholic and Protestant, Parliament and Crown, court and country. To some, he was the king who gave England back its joy. To others, he was a schemer, a womanizer, and a secret Catholic betrayer. But one truth remains: Charles II was a survivor. The boy who hid in an oak tree became the king, who navigated plague, fire, plots, and politics. The Merry Monarch's laughter still echoes through history. The bells of Westminster tolled in 1685. Charles II was dead. His reign, full of triumph and turmoil, had ended. Yet his shadow lingered. His laughter, his scandals, his politics, his survival, they left marks on England that shaped centuries to come. Charles II was unlike any king before him. He had lived through exile, poverty, and humiliation. He had seen his father executed, his family scattered, his throne stolen. And yet he returned. He restored the crown and reimagined kingship for a new age. Where his father had been rigid and uncompromising, Charles was flexible. He bent to survive. He charmed to win loyalty. He laughed to disarm anger. He may not have ruled with iron strength, but he ruled with cunning. He understood people, what they feared, what they desired, what they needed. Theaters reopened. London became a hub of culture. Playwrights like John Dryden flourished. Women finally stepped on stage as actresses, breaking centuries of taboo. Charles's mistresses may have filled gossip, but they also represented a new era of openness in society. Science thrived under him. The Royal Society, chartered by Charles in 1662, became the birthplace of modern science. From astronomy to physics, men like Newton and Hooke laid the foundations of discovery, while their king encouraged them. But Charles's reign also carried deep scars. The plague, the fire, the endless wars strained England. The suspicion of Catholic influence, fed by Charles's secret Treaty of Dover and his brother's religion, created divisions that did not heal. Within 3 years of his death, England would face another revolution, the Glorious Revolution of 1688, where his brother James II was overthrown. To his people, Charles II was more than a king. He was a survivor. They remembered his daring escape at Worcester, hiding in the oak tree. They remembered his wit, his easy manner, his refusal to be broken by tragedy. He was not perfect, far from it, but he was human. Unlike many monarchs, Charles was approachable. He would walk in St. James's Park, chatting with ordinary Londoners. He loved dogs, especially his spaniels, which still carry his name today. Cavalier King Charles Spaniels. He loved music, science, conversation, and above all, life itself. And perhaps that is why history calls him the Merry Monarch. After decades of war, death, and Puritan rule, he gave England joy again. Charles II left no legitimate heirs. His bloodline continued through his many illegitimate children, but the crown passed to James II, then to William and Mary. Yet his spirit, the laughter, the resilience, the survival, remains part of Britain's history. He showed that a king could fall and rise again, that a crown could be broken and restored, that even in an age of fire and plague, joy could return. Charles II once said, with a smile, "I am too old to go again into exile," and he was right. England was his until the end. So what do you think of Charles II? Was he a brilliant survivor who gave England life again, or a reckless king who left chaos behind? If you enjoyed this journey into history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more incredible stories of the past, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. History is not just facts, it's people, choices, and survival. And few survived quite like Charles II, the Merry Monarch.